News 46 is brought to you by Inspiration Senior Living, where we provide affordable elegance to Pahrump area seniors. Give us a call at 751-2300 and make an appointment to tour our community. News is also brought to you by Dr. George Leeks, Pahrump's optometrist since 1990, offering full-spectrum eye care for children and adults. Call today, 727-8300. News is also brought to you by J.K. Nelson Law. Call 727-9900 today for your free consultation. If you need a lawyer, you need Nelson.
Tonight on News 46, a woman dies in a vehicle collision. 3 people are struck by a pellet gun, and a crowd gathers at the BOCC chambers. News 46 starts now.
You're watching KPVM News 46 with Deanna O'Donnell. News 46, local coverage you can count on.
Good evening. It's Monday, October 12th, 2015. I'm Deanna O'Donnell for News 46. A 2-vehicle accident on Belle Vista and Barney late this afternoon required Mercy Air to land on scene. The road was temporarily closed. We'll have more on this story on tomorrow night's broadcast. Authorities have identified the Chinese tourist who was killed in a 2-vehicle crash on Saturday morning. 61-year-old Zhongping Zhao of Beijing, China, was pronounced dead on scene on Highway 160 and Belle Vista. Zhao was sitting in the right rear passenger seat of a Hyundai SUV with 4 other Chinese tourists when it tried to make a left-hand turn from State Route 160 and was hit by a Ford Excursion SUV. 2 men, a boy, and a woman in the Hyundai were hospitalized. 3 men in the Ford also suffered minor injuries. Authorities said the tourists in the van were likely headed to Death Valley. We caught up with Fire Chief Scott Lewis.
Saturday morning, late morning, we were dispatched a report of a 2-vehicle accident in the area of Belle Vista and Highway 160. Upon their arrival, Medic 5 found 2 vehicles positioned off of the roadway. Their investigation revealed that, in fact, 1 person had not survived the collision between the 2 vehicles. There was at least, I believe there was 5 transported by ground, 1 by flight, and of course the person that didn't survive. We activated our mass casualty protocols, which added an additional medic unit, myself, and so these additional resources converged on the scene. We managed not only the accident, but we also managed an off-site landing zone, which was a little bit further up at Calvetta Meadows Airport on the north end of the runway. But we also had to manage the traffic control. Saturday, people going out to Death Valley, so we were dealing with a lot of issues, highly dynamic scene. Many of the people didn't speak English. Everything went well. It went relatively timely, and all those that needed immediate treatment were taken care of.
Was there any issues with the flight, because they were also having free airplane rides that day?
There was a challenge with not only were we communicating with the aircraft was, again, communicating with additional aircraft that were operating in the scene for a scheduled event that they had at Calvetta Meadows.
And Nevada Highway Patrol, of course, investigating that scene. The 5 that were transported by ground went here to Desert View?
Yes, 5 went to Desert View Hospital, 1 went to trauma via Mercy Air 21, and of course then we had the person who did not survive the accident.
What was originally reported as an active shooter on the street My Way off Basin Avenue occurred on Saturday night.
We were placed in a level 1 staging for what was reported as numerous gunshots heard in the area on the west end of the valley. We did, in fact, go to that area. We staged both myself, an engine company, and a medic unit. We were then moved up into the scene where it was determined that several people had gunshot-like wounds, more of a pellet style rather than actually a bullet projectile. We have assessed those individuals, and they found that none of them wanted to be transported to the hospital, so we had an adult AMA and then 2 parental AMAs for the teenagers.
Do you know if they found the suspect?
To the best of my knowledge, they were still in the investigative phase, and they were trying to determine that, in fact, that what had occurred, what kind of weapon may have been used, that type of thing.
Do you have any idea of who it could have been? Because I know that they were saying something over the radio about it being a neighbor, possibly?
Yeah, it's unknown as far as who they may have as suspects, but the sheriff's office was there. They had a huge group of deputies and investigators and detectives all working the scene.
And we are still awaiting a report from the Nye County Sheriff's Office to ascertain if the shooter was apprehended. The BOCC chambers were overflowing this morning. Residents were infuriated about the proposal from the Basin 162 Groundwater Advisory Board concerning their recommendation of mandatory metering on all new wells. There was also many more topics the board had on the agenda, including aggressive education courses for water conservation.
Nobody is in control, complete control of how growth happens. Nobody was in control, and there was no conspiracy how growth happened in this basin during the late 90s, early 2000. It just, one day you wake up and it has arrived at your doorstep and you start working the problem. And it's absolutely free market driven. If growth tears loose in this basin, like it did in the late 90s and through 2008, and we don't do this plan now, we're trying to get ahead of the curve, you're never going to catch that monster in this basin. So I would say that the honorable thing to do is to pursue this plan and try to get ahead of the curve before you are drying up several hundred domestic wells at a whack because you have lost your ability to manage the water levels. So that's why we're attempting to do this plan now.
And we'll have more of that meeting on tomorrow night's broadcast. We spoke to Nye County Commissioner Donna Cox about the issue.
Today they're having the 162 Basin Water Board meeting where they're doing recommendations considering things that may put meters on wells, and they're bringing that to the Nye County Water Board. This has nothing to do with the Nye County Commission meetings right now. It's just strictly between Water Advisory and Water Board.
People are up in arms about this.
Oh yeah, they're pretty upset, and I don't blame them. You know, they're talking about putting meters on wells, which is going to cost people a lot of money. They're talking about taking away 3/4 of your water rights, and then the idea of that is that they would go to basically developers so that they could develop more housing, since we we're over-allocated on the water rights we already have.
So this is going to be decided on today and then brought to the county commissioners?
They're not going to make any decisions today that I know of. These will be ongoing meetings. I think this is just the beginning. But I'm glad that all these people turned out. This is really wonderful to let the board know, because normally we have 1 or 2 people at one of these meetings. But now it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. And to let people know, or the boards know, that there's people out here that really do care and do want to have their voices heard. And it was a little rowdy a little earlier because, as you see, we have people sitting outside now because they said, oh, well, anybody that can't find a room to sit will have to leave. And I said, that's not going to happen. Yeah. You know, by law, they have to accommodate everybody. So we're kind of running behind.
Yeah.
Due to the fact they had to accommodate everybody. They had to bring in, the only choice we had is, thank goodness the weather's great today, because we had to bring in speakers from outside and a way to, they could view it also. And so a good crowd came back. They had to wait an hour. Yeah. They came back. They thought it was worth it. And so hopefully everybody out there hang in for the next meetings, because your voice does count. At least it counts with me. And it counts with several other people. Plus,
when are the next meeting?
They have these about once a month. I'm not really sure exact what day they will schedule them, but I do put out emails to everyone and try to keep them informed and give them a choice to come or not. And if it's a really vital, I don't put them out for every meeting, but everything that's vital, like I feel this is very vital to the community, I do try to email them. And they can email me if they'd like to be put on my list, which is simple. It's cox.donnac@msn.com, and I will add them.
The advisory board decided to send their recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners for their decision. Fire Chief Scott Lewis spoke to us this morning regarding the overcrowding at the BOCC chambers.
We received a telephone call today of a possible overcrowding issue within an established meeting that was being held at the Calavera I. Upon our arrival, we in fact did find that we had an overcrowding issue where aisleways were blocked, emergency egressors were no longer accessible. Fire code prohibits those type of things. So we met with the team that was hosting the meeting. It was decided to take a 1-hour break. They gave me a 1-hour time frame in which to mitigate that. And our best solution was not to displace people to another location since they were already here. However, to expand the capabilities of the existing venue to include an outside resource. With the help of KPVM, which I can't say how invaluable the assistance was to Vern and those folks, to get the ability to create an internal and an external meeting area. audio was run outside, video was run outside. It was an area established for seating in the shade, so comfort levels were maintained. And it was a true essence of a team approach within a very limited time frame. All was accomplished within the prescribed hour, maybe just a tad over. We have a much safer environment within the structure. We feel comfortable. We've posted some additional personnel on location in the event that there's a medical emergency or some other type of thing that may have occurred. So we're best prepared to mitigate that emergency in a very timely fashion.
And we want to remind everybody we air these commissioners' meetings on our channel live, but a lot of people want to be down here to kind of give their input.
We wanted to maintain the ability for the people to voice their opinions, have the ability to get involved in a public comment section, and also to see the essence of how the meeting is going. And so we accomplished that here today without having to displace anyone.
We'll be right back with your Desert View Hospital Health Tip.